Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, Dune Part 2. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I don't have to drink poison from a giant sandworm. The synopsis is as follows. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, he must prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. Dune Part 2 picks up right where Dune Part 1 left off. Paul and Lady Jessica are with the Fremen, evading Harkonnen forces as they try to wipe out the Fremen and the Atreides line. All the political posturing and warring is still going on, and the Fremen are divided on whether or not the prophecies are true and Paul may be the one, or if the prophecies are just propaganda that the Bene Gesserit spread around to enslave them. Paul does not believe he is the one, and he's actually against the idea of this religion, but at the same time he hates the Harkonnens and wants revenge for them killing his father. So this movie surrounds Paul and Lady Jessica as they intermingle with the Fremen and fight against the Harkonnen house to try to take back over Arrakis. The storytelling in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I do feel like this movie is paced better than Dune Part 1 simply because it has more interactive, action-packed scenes. However, there are a couple things I wanted to point out. I still think that Dune Part 1 and Part 2 would greatly benefit from a prequel movie or two having to do with the rise of the houses and what started the issues between the houses. I think that would provide a lot of context because there's a lot going on in this movie and it can be overwhelming for those who haven't read the books. Because once you understand what's going on, it's like this is top tier filmmaking. Dune Part 2 also ends in a much more natural place than the first film did and sets itself up for a Part 3 quite nicely. This is incredible story making, great plot, gets a huge thumbs up. 2 is family friendliness. Dune Part 2 is rated PG-13. There's a very mild bit of profanity, a moderate bit of action and violence, 2 suggested sex scenes that are sensual but they do not show anything, mad props to the director, and a few darker and disturbing moments having to do with House Harkonnen. You would have to use your discretion in this movie just based on the content itself, and there is also the fact that this is almost a 3-hour long movie. I had this movie and Avatar Part 2 almost ruined for me because people decided to bring their kids who couldn't sit still. They wanted to talk and run around and click their buttons on their chair over and over again. So I would probably say, unless your kid can sit through a 3-hour long movie without making noises, probably don't bring your kids to this movie. Consider other moviegoers, or just use heavy discretion. So for me, family friendliness gets a 50-50. 3 is acting and script. Holy moly! All of the acting performances in this movie are absolutely incredible. There's something special about seeing all of these A-list actors come together and give a movie they're all invested. There's not a single moment of acting that pulls you out. Timothée Chalamet did an excellent job playing Paul Atreides once again, and you even got to see a bit more range in his performance compared to the first film, which I really enjoyed. Austin Butler also played a really awesome villain, Fade Rotha, and I love that he was just a cut and dry, evil, sadistic villain. I also liked getting to see more of Zendaya in this movie, and she does a very good job showing emotional range in this movie. We also get to see a lot more of Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem, and they actually use a bit of humor in his character with this movie, and it works really well. I always enjoy Rebecca Ferguson, and she did an awesome job in this movie as well. And though we didn't get to see much of them, I love Florence Pugh, and Christopher Walken is always a welcome addition in a movie. Just awesome. Awesome acting performances. And the script of this movie was incredible. The fact that you hang on every single word because every moment has importance. It's just really special to see something like this. Acting and script get a huge thumbs up. 4 is character development. The character development in this movie is very well done. The dynamic that was introduced in the first film between Paul and Chani is much more fleshed out in this movie. You get to see and understand their relationship as their romance grows, but as there's friction between Paul being thought of as the one, but Chani being one of the Fremen who is completely against the idea of this religion. And it causes this internal conflict in Paul where he's having to choose between doing his duty to take down the Harkonnens, but also loving Chani. And it creates this really powerful relational dynamic in the movie that they do a really good job of showing. I will say though that there is something I noticed both times I watched the movie. There's a moment that happens in this film in regards to Lady Jessica that causes very abrupt character progression. And that stuck out a little bit to me. Far be it for me to suggest anything for Denis Villeneuve, French, to change because he's fantastic, but I do feel like that process of progression could have been a little smoother, a little more understood. Other than that, the character development in this movie is great, and Fade Rotha as a villain, they actually take enough time to develop his character, and when you have a solid villain antagonist like him and just the Harkonnen house in general, it can make a movie that much better, and it did for this film. So for me, character development gets a thumbs up. 5 is visuals and CGI. Visually, this movie is stunning. All of the set design, all of the costume design, all of the CG, it is flawless. It is so fun to visually watch because you're able to step into this world and nothing pulls you out. So I gotta give this movie mad props. Also, the score, Hans Zimmer, you genius. Not only does it make this movie more intense, but it adds so much emotion and depth to every scene. In addition to that, the camera work in this movie is incredible. There are so many moments in this movie where staging is just so great. I'm thinking of one scene in particular where everyone kneels, but there's only a couple people standing. And the effect that that creates for the scene is just incredible. This movie is just awesome, and the visuals and CGI are just the cherry on top. Visuals and CGI get a huge thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Dune Part 2 is 2 hours and 46 minutes long. And while this is a longer film, you don't feel it at all because every scene, every moment, every line of dialogue has importance and value and weight to it. You are with it and on the edge of your seat the entire time. You don't want to miss any part of this movie. But I guarantee you, you'll want to watch it again. So for me, rewatchability gets a huge thumbs up. With all these areas considered, I have to give Dune Part 2 a 9.5 out of 10. Through and through, this movie is excellent. A plethora of incredible acting performances, deep and honest character development, and just fantastic storytelling that keeps you in it the entire time. There's been so many bad movies coming out that I'm like, are we even going to see anything good anymore? And this reminded me that there are still good movie makers out there and I can still have hope. So with all that in mind, Dune Part 2 is absolutely worth going to see in theaters. So get some friends together, watch Dune Part 1, and then go check out the second. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Dune Part 2, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.